Welcome to Cents and Sensibility, where we like to talk about money without the stress. My name is Chris, and I'm here with my good friend.
I'm Phil.
We're getting real about living on a tight budget. So it's not about deprivation. It's about being creative and getting creative with your budget, right? Or your money. So finding that balance and taking small steps to make a big difference, whether you're trying to save, tackle some debt, or even just trying to make it to the end of the month, hopefully not. These strategies will help you stay in control and keep your sanity intact. So let's get started. All right. So first step, number one, to survive on a tight budget is you have to get clear on what your essentials are, right? So these are must-haves, things like rent, utilities, groceries, transportation, right? And so if you can get a clear picture of what these are, then you'll have a better grasp on your budget, right? So a good tip I like to tell people is use the 50-30-20 rule as your baseline. 50% for your needs, 30% for your wants, and 20% for savings. On a tight budget, your needs might take up more, so just kind of adjust as necessary.
Yeah, Chris, I had a friend that once told me they realized they were spending about $150 a month on premium streaming services, and they could cut that down just to one service, and redirect that $120 to cover, their electricity bill or something else. And that relief was instant for them. So that would be a good way to cut down on your expenses.
Can't overlook a lot of, or you can overlook a lot of like subscriptions, and like that's honestly most of what a lot of people do. And for me, I like to tell people a pro tip is to always automate your payments for essentials to avoid like late fees and missing any possible like utility bills or payments on those bills, because it could cost you more than like $30 in penalties. And then you take those penalties on top of like those forgotten, let's say, subscriptions that you have for streaming services, because there's so many out there. It's gonna add up and be absolutely fucking terrible. So that brings us to number two, hidden savings, right? So you'd be amazed at how much you can save just by reviewing your bank statements a couple weeks, maybe twice a month, and you can spot any kind of like leaks in your budget, right? So a good example of this would be like one family I had worked with, discovered that they were spending $75 a month on just going to Starbucks, which is like, to some people that might not be a lot, but to some that is a lot of coffee, right? So they end up buying, investing in like a good coffee maker at home and coffee grounds and so on and so forth. And they started making their favorite coffee at home. And they after I think they did the math for like a year or something like that, it came out to like a savings of like $900 or more. Obviously once like you kind of offset the cost of like the coffee maker. It's kind of nuts.
Yeah, a good tip I like to give people, Chris, is to use apps like Rocket Money that can scan for subscriptions you forgot about, which a lot of people sign up for stuff and then forget about it and then just keep paying it. So we had a user that found they were still paying for an online fitness program that they hadn't used in 2 years. So there was instant savings right there for them. And that brings us to number three, guys, which is get creative with your food. Groceries are a major expense for everyone, and they're also one of the easiest places to save. So I'd look into meal planning and shopping smart, which can free up a surprising amount of cash for you. So a tip I like to give people is plan meals around what's on sale and what's already in your pantry. So a family of four can save about $150 a month by buying store brand items instead of the name brand ones. For example, Chris, a single parent I know cut their grocery bill by $200 by just meal prepping once a week. They focused on simple but budget-friendly meals like pasta, stir fries, and slow-cooked recipes, and that was just instant savings. And that adds up every month as well, so you can use that to pay off other debt as well.
Yeah, no, that's a solid example, and maybe I'm just a basic person, but which brings us to number four, embracing secondhand things, right? So for me, it's always like, sometimes I'm like, why pay the full price when you don't necessarily always have to? From clothes to furniture, tech equipment, there's a lot of options out there that can save you hundreds, right? So like some of the examples would be, and I like to tell people, it's like, go to thrift stores and stuff like that, like Goodwill, to find some really good, like we'll say bangers, for like t-shirts and other little things that like you would not expect to. And then Facebook Marketplace, some people think of it as a gold mine, but some people look at it as like a war zone. But for me, like I got my sexual couch off of Facebook Marketplace and it was a steal, and I'm all for it. And then same thing with like public libraries. I think people don't go to public libraries as much as for books anymore. They often just go there to rent movies, like they Blockbuster, back in the day with like Blockbuster and stuff like that. A good pro tip I like to tell people is check out local buy nothing groups for free items. There's always groups on Facebook that are always giving stuff away for free, which is always nice, because there are hidden gems out there. It's a great way to get what you need without spending a dime, because if it's If it's free, some say it's for me.
Yeah, Chris, that's a great point. And that brings us to number 5, guys, which is make room for joy without the guilt. So, even on a tight budget, it's important to have something to look forward to. The trick is to find low cost joy that you can enjoy. So those are good ways to treat yourself. So host a potluck or something like that with friends instead of dining out. A group I know rotates hosting once a month, and that's become their favorite tradition. And that's honestly more fun than just going out to dinner, in my opinion. The couple I mentioned that likes to do the potlucks, I talked to them and they started having $5 date nights as well. And they'd grab like ice cream and watch the sunset at a local park, and that worked out well for them. So they were able to save a bunch of money by just doing those 2 things. So set aside a small fun fund each month, even if it's just $10, use it as a guilt-free for something that brings you happiness. It's all about balance, guys.
All right, so what's one thing you've done to make a living on a tight budget a little easier? Share in the comments. Love to hear your tips and maybe even feature them in our future episode, so let us know. But surviving on a tight budget isn't easy, but it is possible with the right strategies. So focus on the essentials, find those hidden savings, get creative with food, and don't be afraid to, make room for a little joy, because the small changes that you do make do add up over time. And as always, if you found this episode helpful, hit that like and subscribe button, share with a friend or someone who could use a little budgeting inspiration, and don't miss out on tomorrow's episode where we will be busting some of the biggest myths about debt. So as always, keep your cents and sensibilities in check.